Do you like Space Knights? Do you like anime? Then if you do, the Military Orders is for you. Hi guys, it's Ryan, and this week we're going to redo another old video, and it's going to be a purchase guide for the Military Orders. If you don't know what that is, I'll sit you down and talk about the different purchases for Military Orders and tell you what I recommend to get you started with a competent list with options as quickly as possible. First, I'll go through some assumptions I've made going into this video, with the choices between our two action packs, the basic purchases, kind of the bare minimum of what you need for Military Orders, then the nice to haves. With N5s, there are only really two boxes that I think I can freely tell you to skip, so that won't be a separate category, but I will sort of call those boxes out. Anyway, with that, if you like what you see, remember to like the video and subscribe for more. It really helps get this video out there. Now, let's talk about some ground rules for the video. Like my other purchase guides, I have some general assumptions made about what you're willing to do. One, because I need some parameters, and two, I think that these are reasonably fair. So here are the 5 assumptions. 1, you are fine with both loadout proxying and full-on model proxying. If you're not fine with loadout proxying at the very least, then I'm sorry, I don't think Infinity will be the best for you without a lot of, in my opinion, needless conversion. Unless that's your jam, then in that case, go for it. But if you don't mind loadout proxying and you don't mind some full-on proxying while you start, then this guide will be a lot more useful. The game really fully supports this in its competitive rule set, and it's worth doing to figure out what you like and want to run and inform the purchases from there. 2, I'm not expecting you to buy it all at once. Times are tough, and I'm looking to get the minimum down to as few boxes as possible. The good news is these days there are a lot less boxes to buy due to consolidations, so per model it's cheaper if a bigger upfront cost. 3, I will give the prices out in euros, not because I'm Irish or from the Eurozone, but because that's where Corvus Belli uses on their site, and conversions are tricky. I don't even know what the recommended retail price is in the United Kingdom for Infinity, and I live here. So you can use this to compare it to your local game store and make the decision from there. Your LGS will probably have it cheaper, and you should shop local and support your local scene. Also, eBay and Facebook groups exist, so go look for secondhand stuff and have a gander. 4, that you want a pretty usable 300 point list for some good, not competitive as in tournament competitive, but competitive as in it packs a punch and puts up a fight at your local game night. Competent, not competitive. And 5, and finally this is just a suggestion, if you see a model that looks really cool and you want it, you get it, and you can figure it out from there. It's your hobby, your money, so go for that and just enjoy yourself. Since the last time I made this video, Military Orders has gone through a bit of consolidation with many boxes being pulled together and dropped, leaving less boxes, but not less models. As I mentioned before, it does mean each box is a bit more expensive, but they have at least 3 models, so you can build it up quicker. So now, let's look at our action packs. Unlike most faction, Corvus Belli loves us, so we have 2 action packs that are current and in date. The Military Order action pack, released in N4 with the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre, that's the big one in the back, and the Knight Hospitaller action pack with Joan looking all propaganda-y. So, if you're trying to get started with Military Orders, the question is which one to get. And the answer will largely be to get the Military Action Pack one. From now on, just the Action Pack. This is not to say you can't start with the one with Joan, but it is less broadly applicable since it's very tight into one theme, but its contents did get much better in N5. So why is the action pack a good starting point for Military Orders? Well, 3 reasons. 1, it gives you 80% of your reliable light infantry core with 3 Croziers, 1 with MSV2 and 2 with combis, and a Blackfire heavy rocket launcher. It does give you a complementary Knight Commander, which gives you a Lieutenant, and to make it a 5-man core team, but he has Holomass, so that physical model will really never be on the table unless it's going really well or really wrong. So it's almost a negative in terms of model usage. 2, it gives you 2 really good wildcards in the form of the Knight of Santiago killer hacking device, which is a multi/combi rifle, or it can be the combat jump easily enough. They look very similar. And you get the Knight of Justice Spitfire, who in N5 isn't the most amazing profile, but if you want to get to 300 points and play a game, he will do more than enough. If you're feeling cheeky, you can proxy him as a Crux team, which is functionally a branch of the Knight of Justice. So proxying early, but it is the least egregious of what I'll suggest in this video. And 3, you get the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre, one of our 3 HMG door kickers and a really reliable midfield piece with marker state and an AP HMG, meaning it fulfills that door kicking role nicely. Check out my Military Order faction guide for more on that. This entire pack with the Informer, who will proxy as Joe and maybe even start a Knight Joe or be the Hollow Mask for the Knight Commander, will net you 9 orders and 215 points, assuming no Hollow Mask, which is very nice for military orders. This can be expanded with your basics that I'll get to in a minute, and you can reasonably have 2 distinct but similar-ish lists for 300 point tournament or learning games at the local games night. Some might argue that the focus on line troopers isn't as needed these days, but for learning games, just having the orders on the table, even unlinked, is, I think, more important. But it's a valid point to consider. I think overall you can start with this, play games, have enough heavy infantry that you can proxy it as other knights, then slowly make up your mind what you want next, and buy that. And for that reason, and the ones I recommended earlier, I recommend starting here. If, however, you're not a fan of the pack and you would prefer Beskero Joan, then the Hospitaller pack might be for you. It's got 11 models, 10 order generating troops at 266 points, which is not the most runnable list, but it's no slouch either. The 4 Hospitallers are really good in N5, slow but very dependable heavy infantry that give you a door kicker in the HMG, a doctor, a dude with a boarding shotgun who can start in the midfield if you wish, and a universal proxy. Joan is our super lieutenant. This mini is the multi-rifle one, but honestly proxying as a Spitfire is equally as good or better, and you can go with the Knight Hospitallers to make a mean old brick to throw at your opponent. You get 3 Order Sergeants who are nice little elite line infantry, not like Karhu level, but cheap hacker for military orders, a good ARO piece with a heavy rocket launcher, and an Oxbot and Combi Rifle one as well. This could be a cheeky wee ARO pairing with 2 of them, and a third standing at the back with the bot in case someone wants to flank your DZ, or it could allow for nice fire teams with other knights or even our Rems. Finally is the Blackfriar and Crusader Brethren. The Blackfriar in this box is a bit meh, even with the loadout proxying, so I maybe proxy him as something else so he can do something. But the Crusader Brethren got much better in N5 and can really come into its own as a really solid drop troop to come in from the side and do some real damage, giving more to MO than just knight move up the board and shoot. Really, it's a lot of points, and I think in the long run, in order to get a decent 300 point list, you might need to spend more to support what's in the box, but without proxying, you're locked out of a really flexible core unless you get Teutonics, which I will recommend in a moment. You also lack some nice options and will have to get them later on, like the wildcard Santiago's cheap paramedics, Knight of the Holy Sepulchre, and even a Crux proxy. Loadout proxying helps, but you're still missing a lot. Still, Joan is a beautiful model, but you can get her solo. The following section covers the basics that you'll want in your army beyond the action pack. Boxes in this section, I generally run about 90% of the list, except maybe one box who I think could still be incredibly useful. Trinitarians are maybe my most taken unit in military orders, despite not actually owning this box, and as a skirmisher lover I take 2 in most lists, and if I'm not taking 2, I'm taking another model that will be functionally do the same job but differently, such as a combat jumper or an angry midfield piece. Why are they so important? Well, they do a role military order knights struggle with, and that's functioning in the midfield when all the repeaters and hackers are in play. They push buttons very easily in most missions, and they can just flank very well with very little effort thanks to forward deployment or infiltration. This box offers your full availability, meaning that it's a one-time purchase and you get access to all 3 loadouts. The multi-sniper rifle, the SMG forward observer, and the boarding shotgun who can either be a killer hacker or the other forward observer. I tend to do 1 SMG forward observer, 1 boarding shotgun forward observer, with 1 in each group, as they are cheap enough and very good at doing missions. Friends of the channel, Sneaky Snake usually runs 2 multi-sniper rifles, which will require some loadout proxying, but that won't really matter as there is an option I'll get to in a minute that will help with that. However, most military order players will tell you to get this box. Trins are a good cost-effective piece needed for the army, and kind of shows military orders isn't just knights. I have won games with the shenanigans you can pull from Trinitarians. Great purchase for units that you will bring most games, and if not, they can reasonably be proxied for the Raven Eye Officer, Sniper Crozier, or even Dart. Drone bots are a necessary evil. Well, I say that, but then I do actually like some of these bots. And so what do I mean by necessary evil? Well, if you looked at military orders unit cost, it's expensive. So we have to pad out our knights with orders and bring some Silhouette 3 bots to help us out. To be fair, this usually comes in the fact they are pretty good tools to have, but we need to bring them. This drone bot pack comes with 2 bodies and the options to attach weapons to make 2 of 4 options. Fungazis, cheap ARO and repeaters, we only get 1 of these. And they also show up in a lot of my lists, and basically what I'm saying here is that you'll need them to get close to 15 orders as possible. That leaves you with 1 other body, and if you want to be WYSIWYG, personally I would for the Pathfinder, as it's really useful with TAC-aware profile these days. Meaning it shows up not in every list, but if I have the right amount of points left, I'm often reaching for it. It also has a gun, which means it can and does proxy for the Sierra as needed, which these days is surprisingly often. So is it worth getting a box? You don't need 2 boxes like in other armies, as it's just good tools to bring when you need them. So grab a box. It will be fun to paint, as it isn't just another dude in power armor. Solid buy, and when you start faction 2 or 3, you can bring them along with you. Mulebots are very similar but a more necessary evil. I don't like taking them, and when I can cut them I do, but TAM militia orders is expensive and we need orders so mulebots get taken. They do offer an evil hacker who can provide your bots with marksmanship and more importantly your knights and tags with hacking protection, so it is worth taking this if you need it, but the 8.1s are a necessary evil for most military orders lists, and it's here in basics because I take 1 in most lists, but some people will take 0 and just go down 1 order and put the points elsewhere in a list, which is fair. It's basic, but like it's a less needed basic. Also, the mulebots are old and metal, so if you can get another Silhouette 4 bot, then use that as a proxy. Probots or fuzzbots are the newest ones, and the probots do look quite nice, and if I had to pick a Silhouette 4 baggage bot, probably go with these ones instead. Also, worth noting is you can't proxy drone bots as mulebots and vice versa, as these bots use a different base size. As such, without Silhouette 4 base, which is a 55mm one, you cannot use a drone bot who is only on a 40mm as is. However, there is nothing stopping you from putting a drone bot on its correct base, the 40mm, and then just putting that on top of a 55mm base with some blue tack. Like, it's not a long-term solution, but that's completely valid in my opinion. Teutonic Knights, I think, are less needed in N5. They're not a necessary evil, but it gives you enough models and options to start bringing some really diverse lists with just 5 boxes I mentioned so far. It gives you access to military orders, warband equivalent, and access to a really nice wildcard delivery vehicle in the Teutonic Knights. This will again give you your full whack of availability with the Spitfire Knight, who has NCO for some really efficient order usage. The Missile Launcher Teutonic Knight, who I think is a bit meh in N5, but it is an ARO option or a good proxy for Panzerfaust. Also a killer pose, certainly my favourite. And finally the SMG Panzerfaust running pose. It's odd that they never gave it a light shotgun one, despite that being the lieutenant, the baseline, and the tin bot. But I mean, that's what the Missile Launcher is for, and he can pretend to have a Panzerfaust. These 3 and what they do to most MO lists is enough to just bump it into that top of nice to haves or just into basics. However, the Order Sergeant Spec Ops profile is really pulling its weight here. As mentioned, I don't actually own the Trinitarian box. I own the Order Sergeant from this box with the multi-sniper rifle. It comes with both arms for a multi-sniper and Spitfire, and a Shuji from some other purchases that I had going on. If you're going to take 1 Trin because you've done a bit of list prep and practice and 2 is too much, then sure, skip that box and get this one. Even if you don't use it as a Trin, it could be an easy Crozier multi-sniper rifle, or if you don't mind snipping down the barrel or taking the Spitfire, you could go ahead and proxy this as just an Order Sergeant, particularly the hacker, and bang, that's a wonderful little fire team there, particularly if you bring a Trin as a Crozier with a multi-sniper and get a 5-man light infantry pure core. If you're budget conscious, I would really recommend this, as it's great bang for your buck when you get a little creative with proxying. Just before I get to the nice to haves, the variety that is the spice of MO life, I wanted to create a little list with some proxies to show exactly what you can do with all 4 of these kits and what I use to proxy. The list does use a lot of proxying and has a lot going on, but it's pretty feature complete and it does use a lot of your models. It starts with a Crozier core with a multi-sniper rifle. That one is the Trinitarian Sniper standing in with the Crozier Paramedic. I tend to use the Sword Crozier for this. The Order Sergeant Hacker, which counts as a pure member of this fire team and thus will get 6 cents and make the repeaters in your deployment zone a big threat to walk into. I assume you understand hacking. If not, I have a video here. This is sort of future-proofing the list as well. To finish off the fire team, a Knight Commander who will be hidden as the Spitfire Crozier, and finally a random Crozier to act as its 5th member. This may be a justified use of a static core fire team in N5, and will teach you good ARO fundamentals and a nice hacking set. Sticking with fire teams, we're bringing 2/3 of our Teutonic Knights in a Harris with an NCO Spitfire, can use that Lieutenant in order for an additional boost, a Specialist to do some missions, and finally the Knight of Santiago Hacker with a killer hacking device who can do most missions and cards, bring some AP to this fire team, and a tin bot to get around hacking. That tin bot essentially acts as hacking cover for the entirety of the fire team, so long as they're linked. I gush about the Santiago faction guide here, but it's a good unit, and it's another unit from the big box used. We have 2 Trinitarians in this list, 1 in each group, 1 SMG, 1 with a boarding shotgun. Each do the same job. Start up the board, push buttons, harass light troopers that they can stack mods against and bully them, or basically tidy up after the knights or something, or soften something up for them. Start them in camo for the order, or be extra safe and hide them in hidden deployment, but sacrifice order generation for the turn. Play some games, learn how skirmishers work, and watch what they can do. In both groups, we use mule bots as basically just order generators for the group, and to act as repeaters to keep sneaky boys on their toes and to refill Panzerfausts that get used. The Fungazi does a similar thing, barring the baggage, but instead acts as a soft ARO piece to help defend the DZ. Finally is the solo PCs. The Knight of the Holy Sepulchre is a very tricky piece for beginners, so I recommend practicing with it first, but it is very good. It's a slow at 5, but it packs a wallet with its tag grade guns and its ability to get surprise attack off due to hollow echoes, which is really nice to be tricky in the main field, and you don't have to worry about hacking since he's got Warhorse and BTS-9, which makes him immune to isolation, and it will be pretty difficult to immobilize him. He can break most AROs and tangle with tags unless they're min 6, at which point that's a bit tricky, and we do have other tools elsewhere to deal with that. And finally is a lone Teutonic Knight with Spec Ops to run him up the board and trade well into things, or grab a button if a Trin needs backup. Overall, this is kind of a really nice list. It's a little complex for beginners, but there's enough tricks going on that if you learn them one at a time, you can really understand what Military Orders is about. The following section is the nice to haves, the aforementioned spice to Military Orders life. The above options will get you 2 functional lists to take to your first tournament or games nights, but this will get you through the rest of your Military Orders career. This is where Rule of Cool plus the basics will define what you buy, and really where I'm hammering on, if you find it cool enough, that's good enough, it's your hobby, you're painting it, not me. And so, in no particular order, what's nice to have? Tags. Shock, horror, it's pano. These are really nice to have. Not like getting them immediately, but I want to start with them as 1, both our tags are really good these days, and 2, they look really cool. The teak got resculpted recently, and if you're in Military Order for the Knights, a Mechan Knight is an easy sell, and both are good options. They both basically give you a second list for your tournament / game nights, and bring a new approach to list building that differs from Knights only. They just bring a lot of bulk and door kicking ability in your models, and that is just a new and different experience than just running Knights of the Holy Sepulchre or a Knight Harris. A tag does need support, and it kind of leads into a few follow-up purchases that might be needed, like the Tech B pack, which is our tag com, a buff piece for the tag, and cheap regular order, which is absolutely key in Military Orders. It also gives us our peripheral ancillary, the Crabbot, which is a very old box. It's very much worth it even without the tag, since it can proxy as a Palbot or an Oxbot in a push. It's not too bad at €24.50, and it can be a nice project. I don't own this, my Infirmer is my Tech B, and my Oxbot stands in as my Crabbot, but it's really nice if you get a tag. Game wise, a tag does need a little more support on this. Ideally in my tag video here, I talk about needing an engineer and a hacker if you do the basics. Then you can get an Order Sergeant hacker with some proxying, but the engineer is a smidge more difficult. We have 1 engineer in the faction, but 2 ways to get it. The Military Orders Headquarter pack with Kyle Hawkins, the Curator, and the Grandmaster HVT. Not a bad box, kinda. The character you get isn't super good, and to be honest, you will already have capacity to run better wildcards than him, so it's a bit of a dud. He's maybe a 5th Hospitaller Scope, that's kind of where he is. The HVT is nice, you will need one, but it can be gotten by any random model that isn't immediately looking like a real game piece. the Knight of Commander, when not being used in your list, could work, but the Grandmaster is great. The Curator here is actually the important bit, is also great. It's our Sectorial Engineer and will be playable as WYSIWYG. But you don't get the needed PAL bots for our Engineer, and we get only one Engineer total, and we really need those PAL bots to make good use of it. You can use the Crab bot, maybe if you like this box, but I'm not sure. I'm not a fan of the Headquarter box. Maybe I'm still mad about the Curator thing, but who knows. It can work, but this is quite low on the nice to haves. Now, the alternative to getting an Engineer is to buy the Pan-Oceanian support pack, which is not actually useful for us, technically, since we don't have Tramadocs or Machinists. We do have Palbots, yes, but this one is going to be grab it for the Palbots and grab it to proxy the Machinist as a Curator. It's literally the same unit with Religious Trooper, then use the Tramadoc as a Crozier Paramedic. A light infantry with a medikit is a good proxy to have generally, and could be used in other factions or as a HVT. If you want to know how to MOify them, then I recommend a small green stuff tabard. Job done. This generally gives you more models for a reasonable price, and is generally my recommendation as one of the first steps unless you really want Wine Knight and Kyle. It's also cheaper than the support pack at €30 for older but fairly new models compared to the 43 of the Headquarters pack. So yeah, pick what works for you to support the tag and the Knights. Pick your favourite tag, pick up an Engineer and proxy out a Hacker. Nice little set and list to make. Okay, huge tangent over regarding tags and the support systems. If you want more Knights, then the Military Order expansion pack or Solo Santiago blister might be what you need. The Solo Santiago blister features the Spitfire Santiago, our second or third best active lieutenant, and a good wildcard to take alongside Teutonic Knights, Order Sergeant, or in a duo with other Knights of Santiago's, which is a good combo. It's a really nice model. It may be my favourite gun forward pose there is. It's no pose in its own action, and it's only €18.50, which is not bad. It's heavy infantry. It's another piece to bring your military order list in a new direction that involves Joes and Knights. If you want it a bit cheaper per model and get two more characters who bring a lot for military orders for €46.50, so that's two characters for €28 more, you can get the MO expansion packs, which will give you General Release Mendoza, who is the multi-rifle version, and Gabriel de Fernsons, our second or best active lieutenant, depends on who you ask. This box drags your military order collection towards Knights, and it's unlikely to take all three at once. Two of them might be pushing it, but damn, it's three solid options. Both Mendoza and de Fernson got faster recently, and Mendoza is a kill mission dream, with him being hard to hit, loading thermite rounds in his multi-rifle or heavy shotgun, because Willy Pate is only a war crime if you get caught. He starts out in midfield, he won't do missions, and is around 50 points, so it's a bougie pick, but he's very fun to run. De Fernson, though, brings hacking, guns, and leadership to any fire team he joins, and is a contentious piece of a jack of all trade, master of none, or a jack of all trade, master of them all. I'm starting to lean the latter, and in generally, he's a great do-it-all piece that you can take with, say, two Teutonic Knights, or a Knight Hospital Doctor, and a Santiago, and he will handle most missions. This overall is a really good go-to box to finish off your list. You figure out what you like in military order, and this will give you a variety of things to try and achieve it. If you did not originally get the Hospitaller action pack, then after a few games with the basics, it might be a good idea to grab one. Why? When comboed with the military order action packs and the basic, you get just so many new options to run military orders. You can let the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre now run part-time as your door kicker, as the fire team of Knight Hospitallers or Joan can come in and do that job fairly well. The box gives you a lot, maybe one model that's not really getting used, that Blackfriar, and even then, I've talked about it earlier, it's just all solid. Small changes that really alter the game, like swapping a Trin to a Crusader Brethren, could be nice. That's a new angle the opponent didn't expect, or maybe they did, but now it's 50-50 combat jumper or Trinitarian. Joan is our second or best active lieutenant, with her being a mini tag in a duo or Harris. She will be the brick to launch across the table or get bricked without engineers. The Order Sergeants complete the Crozier Corps, making it easier to get that Light Infantry Corps or Harris together. You now also get access to the Order Sergeant Harris, which itself opens doors to things like the Bulleteer in that Harris, or de Fernson, or a Crux. you can bring escort sergeants with the little bots for TC defense. Or if you're feeling wild, a nasty little tertiary specialist. If you've tried military orders and found yourself not really reaching for much in this box, then it is €93, and that's a lot of money to spend. As such, it might be better to put that cash elsewhere or to try and find the parts or cheap proxies that could be useful. The Crusader is really nice, but any panel looking drop trooper would really work. Military orders is just panel in the tab art. This is very much a try before you buy since the box is so big. So try it on Tabletop Sim, try it with proxying, then make the decision. But for me, it was such a good purchase that I had to eventually grab it. Solo Joan is available if you've decided that Joan is the one for you. This is her Mark II version, where she has an AP Spitfire to advance up the board and lead from the front. It's a very good brick, as previously mentioned, and far cheaper if you want her at €21, which is not bad, but a little pricey. You can proxy this as well, but this is if you want to have running Joan for the game, and it's not a bad idea if you don't want the big box or you want WYSIWYG. The Knight of Montesa is a really great unit for military orders, and if you clear out the hackers, it can do a lot of damage to your opponent and a lot of wonders to your score. It has a Red Fury one that's available for €43, but it's the boarding shotgun one I have, and it's probably the easiest to find. I think Wayland in the UK has a huge amount left, if you believe them. Back in N4, it gave you the biker and its dismount, but now sans dismounting in N5, it gives you the Foot Knight of Montesa and the Motorized Knight of Montesa. I use the bike a lot, and I want to use the Foot Knight more, so it could have some legs. It is all metal, so it's a bit more expensive, but it can be worth it if you want a fast assault piece, and it's fun to paint. I bought mine for about £30 in pounds, or it was a gift, but it cost that much, and I got enough value, so it's an easy recommendation for me. Dart, I'm not really a fan of for military order. She's a bit too steep for my blood, but she is a well-respected piece that can't be proxied well, since she does look like an left trooper and does have a box for an SMG. So for about €14.50, which is much cheaper, since she is an older character and cheaper than getting the Aristea or Gen Con one, so it might be worth picking up if you enjoy her as a toolbox unit for military orders. But I will say maybe try proxying her first, seeing if it's worth it for you, and then deciding if you want to get it. Armbots recently got redone, and they're fantastic for €36. You get a Bulletier, who is a fantastic duo or Harris gunner, then the much glowed up Peacemaker with a heavy shotgun and min-3 to do a lot of damage. Finally, the best little guy in military orders, the updated Oxbot that can be a mine layer hilariously enough. It's a good box for cheap. I use the Bulletier a lot in N4 and plan to use it in N5 alongside Knights and Tags. The Peacemaker is also in a good position these days, and it is high on the to try list. Box is very good proxy fodder as well, and you can use the Peacemaker stand-in for other Silhouette 4 box, or the Bulletier as an impromptu bike, particularly if you put a lance on it. If you like robots and want to try them, I think it's worth it. Finally is our Dire Foes box, featuring Brother Konstantinos, Robin Hook, former Military Orders character, and named healer Wagatha for Bakunin. Dire Foes are always difficult to recommend, since it's basically a box to split or to maybe box to keep in some of the model for it. If you don't want nor need Hook as a HVT and instead just need Konstantino, check in with your local Bakunin player to see if Konstantinos is going for sale. I got mine for a tenner, so it's probably doable. If not, should you buy the entire box as a military order player? Maybe. If you're looking to Bakunin after military orders, first off, one at a time, then maybe Hook is a cool sculpt and profile, so maybe. But just for military orders, it gives you a reasonable piece with MSV2 and Disco Volor and a nice HVT, and you probably could sell Wagatha to a BGC player, or keep her some sort of knight proxy or infirmer. Same vibes with the healer with the gun. Yes, it's very orthodoxy versus Catholics of military orders, but honestly, a military warrior of faith is basically the same either way. It's €43 at Corvus Belli, which is a little steep for me for one character and two HVT/proxies, so I might pass on this unless the sculpts speak to you. So the next section, I wanted to show off my go-to tournament list and a decent list for the Teak Malang, not to flex on how much I spend, but to give you an idea of what a basic but good tournament list costs. I was tempted to throw in Sneaky Snake's IGL list, but that got far more complicated on proxies and stuff, and it was over TTS, so it's a bit more free range with models used. I also click for it here. For what it's worth, I don't actually own a fully WYSIWYG army, as a lot of my models are actually proxies, such as both my Trinitarians, my Bulletier, my Curator, Palbots, the Serf, and Tech Bees are all proxies. I plan on getting the Surf at some point, but I'm actually going to probably get Scarface as a proxy. In the meantime, it's a Chernobog. I'll show off some lists, talk about it, and then go ahead and break down the price per model, i.e. the cost of the box / the number of models in the box, and the price of all the boxes used, but also a maximum proxy usage cost, i.e. if I can manage to proxy it with an existing model, then I will do that instead of buying another box. I wanted to start with my go-to tournament list just to get an idea of what you can do if you go out and splash a bit of cash. All prices are at full Corvus Belli value, but I can assume you can get 10% off at your local game store. This list is what I call reasonable for military order with the Knight of Montesa. I usually riff on this quite a lot and will swap out the Knight of Montesa and Teutonic Knight NCO, Drop Troopers, or other random pieces like Peacemakers. It's a fundamental MO list, a core for ARO to contain some utility, not level 5 pure, but pure enough to make the Blackfriar lethal. It has 2 trins to do the objective and control the midfield, a Harris of Knights to march up and shoot things, melee things, and generally win you the game doing the objective. Finally is the filler bots, but also stuff like Pathfinder, who can enable you to proactively use your hackers, or just do what you can for 17 points and 2 orders to its name. And finally, the Motorized Knight of Montesa to be fast, fighty, and a brick of metal to throw at your opponent. Oh, and a Teutonic Knight Warband as well. Assuming you want full WYSIWYG, you are looking at a whopping €447 for a full army. And don't worry, you get a lot more than just one list worth of crap, but you get about 44 models for about €10 a model, which this comes down a bit, assuming you can get the 10% off. However, with some judicious proxying, you can save a bit of cash. Simply, you can drop about €60 by either finding the points to swap the Teutonic Knight for the Foot Knight of Montesa, which you will have if you run the Montesa, or just proxy the Foot Knight of Montesa as a Teutonic Knight. No confusion now, since there isn't a dismounted version of the Knight of Montesa. So that's £60 saved. Alternatively, you can turn around and change the list, swapping the bike Montesa for maybe another Teutonic Knight Spec Ops, and not need the bike at all. The other way, if you're really cheap and want to go proxy mad, is that you have one Silhouette 4 model left from the Mule bot box, and we could easily drop the Montesa box to use the bot as a bike. Even the Trin box could be dropped using some leftover Order Sergeants to use as Trinitarians. The Mule bot as a Montesa is a little bit cheeky, but it is the same base size. But if you squeeze a spare knight, and you will have some spare on the back, I'd buy that as a good effort / good faith motorized Knight of Montesa proxy. Alternatively, you can run something else. The regular Order Sergeants as Trinitarians is also a wee bit cheeky, but it's probably fine. Just to be clear, and keep them away from your Order Sergeant that sits in a core, I personally use the Order Sergeant Sniper from the Teutonic Knight box as a Trinitarian, but that's pretty clear on what that's meant to be, as it's very close to Skirmisher in style. Those 2 changes will save you another £81 from the Trinitarian box and Montesa box, making it a much more palatable amount to get. Equally, you have like 25 models to turn around, even sans the Montesa and Trins, and you can run some really nice Joan plus Knight Hospitaller duo lists, some really nice double Harris lists, some Drop Trooper lists. It's a lot of options with what you've bought here. I was honestly going to do my Seraph-based list of theses, but honestly, I don't even have all the models for that, and it's harder to prop. So let's whip this round to Baby's first tag list, and oh boy, that is some sticker shock, but don't worry, it will get better. Similar to the previous list, the core is basically the same, and the only thing you're using from that is the Knight Hospitaller action pack, is the Order Sergeant Hacker, so that's artificially pumping the price up by a whopping €92.50. So we proxy the Order Sergeant Spec Ops from the Teutonic Knight box as the Order Sergeant Hacker, and then we can bring the price down to €411. For a tag list, I recommend Engineers, so that's what I've added, both the Curator and Power Box, which is technically 2 separate boxes, which yikes, but we can remove 43 from the Curator by using a Machinist or Tramadoc as a proxy, since, like I said earlier, they're literally the same model but in a circle, so trust the proxy here is worth it. So we're now down to €368.50. Moving on to the rest of the list, I have a Crozier Sniper like in the basic list, which you're now looking at using the Trin for the Crozier Sniper, which is fine as the Crozier Sniper doesn't actually exist, so the Trinitarian Sniper subs in nicely. We have the Teutonic Knight Harris, which does a lot. It's a basic one, No Knight of Santiago like before, but it still manages to bring a specialist, a tin bot and a gun. It was good in N4, it's still good today. Just be careful with the limited cover. I brought a Trin killer hacking device, but that's with the boarding shotgun, so we have the model for that. So that will be just good to find and kill hackers with the tag list. I was struggling to get this list to 15 orders, so I sacrificed the Trin for it. So if you can make a second work at 14 orders, maybe consider it. We have 2 Mulepods, which is fine, and 1 Fungazi doing AROs. Finally, the main part of this list is a Teak Balang and a Tech Bee. Tech Bees buff the Teak and as such are great to have in tag list. She's €25.50 and comes with the Crab bot, but is entirely optional as you can proxy the Infirmer here because, you know, she's a cheerleader for the tag with a flag. Semaphore. That comes with a Crab bot, but you can literally use the token for this, which is free. So if you want, we can get rid of that purchase as well. We truly are pulling the Scotsman special here, going as cheap as possible. So that's another $24.50 gone. Finally is the Teak, the bad boy of N4 and pretty good in N5. He is the cannon in your list. He activates to kill 10 out of 10 piece. He's also pretty easy to proxy. He's €41 compared to the 57.50 of the Seraph. A much newer and smaller base of 40 mils and Silhouette 6. Now the Holy Sepulchre is Silhouette 5 and a 40 mil, and he's not like massively shorter. Mechanically, it's 1 centimeter of a difference. Model wise, even the old Teak is huge, but it can be too tall, and that's not really a problem since the Silhouette is still Silhouette 6. Just buy a Silhouette marker to make sure you get a line of fire marker to keep it right. That saves you about another €41 if you don't want to buy the Teak Balang, for a grand total of €303, or in short, 1 box of panel support pack more than the basics I recommended earlier. Look at that, 2 tournament capable lists, learning capable lists in 5 boxes that you can build and paint and play at your pace. The Teak, to be honest, is the last bit of this list that you probably don't need to proxy just because it's the centerpiece of any list that runs it. But if you're a cheap bastard like me, we can proxy. But that bit I leave up to you. The new Teak absolutely looks stunning and it is worth painting. So if you don't mind blinging out the list, this is the one purchase I would keep in. So it's either €303 with some hefty proxying or €343 and you get a wonderful list. And that was my recommendations on how to buy into military orders. Also outing myself as a cheap bastard. There are lots of options to buy and lots of ways to save. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and learned something. If you did, remember to like and subscribe for more. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, and I now need to go rest my voice.